fighting and tugging with me for this firearm. If I'm in this position here, I can easily get at least one shot off. But understanding how the functionality of the firearm and the weapon is, you guys are going to hear when one shot, it's quiet. I can potentially get that one shot off. That round ejects, but now what ends up happening, look at the weapon system, which is, it's out of battery. Eventually I'm going to get to a position to where I can fire this firearm again from here. I might be hitting hip or lower gut area. That one round off, but again, I have the same issue, right? The gun, the firearm goes out of battery. I get up on my feet, I start to do this, and then I can get back on the gun. Creating distance, starting to assess my area.
Situation looks like most likely in that situation, adrenal levels are high, and if I happen to make it to this, most likely what's going to happen is I'm going to keep pulling the trigger, right? So bang, click, 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 click. So having that redundancy of training once I get clear, right? What's that look like? Or is it better for the officer to quit relying on that after they took their one shot, ditch it, reholster it? What does that look like? What situation are they in? Do they have backup coming in? So putting those factors into your drill of knowing I just have this one shot and we're going to use it like a pressure point, right? This isn't a game stopper. This isn't a fight stopper. Maybe I happen to put that into the pelvic girdle. Great target. But I still have to buy time, right? Hydraulics are slowly leaking out of this person. It's not a game stopper. So being able to have that conversation with your officers, hey, this works, but it's not a magic bullet. They're not going to jump off of you and fall down on the ground, right? So adding that into your drill that I took this shot, I still need to come up, I still need to clear, I still need to either be in control or I need to make distance, take care of my weapon system, and then get back in the fight.
Look, on that one, I'm in close. I'm not a large person, but once the weapon is wrapped and somebody is wrapped around me, okay, I like to work in the armpit or the pelvic girdle. So I'm either going to come in here through the body and out the shoulder, or I'm going to come down here and take out the pelvic into the ground, pelvic girdle into the ground, or I'm going to come, if I'm clear, if I can come under the neck and fire the round into the ceiling through the head.
When you talk about like things that you're shooting for, you're talking about areas of the body that have high probability for a lot of bleeding and trauma to the body, where getting shot like through forearms or shins, or there's not a lot of trauma going in the body when it goes in. So shooting through the armpits, you have major arteries running through, so you're creating bleeding quickly, which can cause a physical response to the body. You know, your arteries are going to constrict to keep blood flow close to your brain, to keep the thickened box going, your heart going, your lungs breathing as long as it can. But everything else goes away, so the response and they can't react physically as quick because the body is trying to stay alive as they're bleeding out. You know, like the pelvic girdle, that's the framework, that's our balance point. Without our hips, and we can't walk. We don't have any balance. So you start sending rounds to the pelvic girdle, we start breaking bones and massive bleedings. The body can't. And there's all nerves in there too. The body can't move. It can't catch up to you. You're just a stick figure. Popsicle sticks that can't do anything, just fall over. And the bleeding, and again, your body restricting everything, sending blood to your brain and your heart and your lungs, because that's what you need to live. And they'll start restricting everything into it. And then as those people, when the bleeding happens, people will stay alive longer than what they normally would because of the restriction. But once that goes away, it unrestricts, and the blood, people bleed out really quickly.
Utilizing that contact to make other officers safe, make the children and other people in the house safe, because you're now directing your shot, okay? And whether you're going to send it up, send it down, or send it through a body, it's making everybody else.
This is no difference from the gun to your ear than our normal close quarter shooting tactics. You know? And every department's different, but generally every department has some sort of close quarter shooting tactic. And let's be real honest with ourselves. There's not a whole lot of difference between the distance from the gun to your ear from here than there is from here. So anyone that's really worried about your hearing loss, like, well, any gunfight you end up getting into on the job is going to have the same effect on your ears as if you're shooting from here or shooting from here, as just as if you're shooting from here.
Environment, firefights and shootings and all this stuff, that the last thing I remember is like anything happening to my hearing, and this is probably why I lost 30% of this hearing.
You don't hear.
And every morning I wake up, you know, whatever. But in that moment in time, that's my least. My thing is, hey, this is a life or death situation. I got rounds coming at me, or I got a guy with a knife coming at me. That's the last thing I'm concerned with. And again, physiologically, our bodies do things to protect itself. So it actually, auditory exclusion, we've heard that forever in law enforcement. Well, that's a real thing. They didn't just come up with that term, right? So to draw this weapon and get on target and take your shots, you're right. There's no difference from this distance here to this here. I think one of the bigger concerns I would say that some administrators might have is like, oh, now we're teaching guys to shoot from this position here or from here. Again, if you teach the technique and the tactic properly and they apply it properly, there should be no concern for people shooting out their bicep or shooting whatever. But that comes with drilling and drilling and drilling and drilling and kind of homing in those small little details, right? Of making sure they get it here. Because any weapon system, once you get it underneath whatever, the barrel's past this, if you're coming underneath to the trigger guard, and here, if you really, I can see people being like, oh, what if I'm here? Well, then, you know what, I'm probably not gonna pull the trigger because I can feel the meat of my arm against the beginning of the barrel here. So getting it past that and getting it to that extension and rolling, gator rolling and getting it to a position to where I can actually take that shot. So I think that's where most of the concern comes in.
What you have here is you have to make a decision on, are you gonna risk a graze, a muzzle burn, maybe a wound to the arm, a little hearing loss, because if the subject gets your gun, he's going to execute you.
Yep.
And that's just the way it stands. And the system that you have there is excellent.